Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the 415. I'm Raina Starr. With me, as always, is my co-host, the amazing Starr Bustamonte. Say hello, Starr.
Hello, Starr.
415 is brought to you by House of Black Hat Magic, wildhunt.org, and Desperate House Witches, also the home of www.dorothymorrison.com for all of your Dorothy Morrison needs. Check it out. Okay, so it's been an interesting political month so far, and it's only the end of the first week in a real sense. Holy shitskis. Oh, by the way, the opinions expressed on this show are those of mine and my co-host. You will hear cursing and swearing and all kinds of manner of bad talk. So if that upsets you, you don't want to listen. But I think you do want to listen because, you know, that's why you call
it. It's sweary goodness. Oh. It's sweary goodness.
It is the sweariest goodness you can consider. So, all right, we're going to get to the Trump situation at some point during this hour. It's probably several points during this hour. 34 for 45. I heard that, like, from every corner of every room I walked in the other day. It was great. Okay. So apparently we have whittled down the Trump supporters where I am to 2 out of 7. So I'm very happy about that. So we're making progress. Progress is happening. All right. So we have a potential outline here, but before I do that, let me just remind everybody, please support Wild Hunt. Go to wildhunt.org. Give it all your support. It is the pagan paper of record. Support it. We need to keep it going. It has real reporters. Which we are lacking severely, apparently, in this world. I'm seeing some stuff on mainstream media that is just freaking me out as far as, like, in beholden to Trump. I'm like, really, Wall Street Journal? Really? Is this what we're doing? Okay, very interesting. But anyway, okay, so let's talk about Speaker Johnson. You know, Mike Johnson, who managed to become Speaker after the Kevin McCarthy debacle, which it was. Kevin McCarthy, if you blinked and missed it, was Speaker and got ousted rather handily. And then they put in Mike Johnson, who I don't think that many people actually wanted him either. I think that it was just a settling point because the Republicans were starting to look moronic, more than usual. But anyway, hit me with it, Starr. What's going on there with those appointments?
So there's, first of all, Johnson is just a tremendous piece of shit, okay? That's the first thing. Let's just be clear. I don't like him. I think he's terrible. I think he's not qualified to be Speaker, and he's pretty much already demonstrated that he's just a yes man for Trump. Mm-hmm. So yesterday, Speaker Johnson named Scott Perry and Ronnie Jackson to serve on the House Intelligence Committee. Scott Perry is a Republican from Pennsylvania, and Ronnie Jackson was Trump's medical advisor, doctor, what have you, when he was in the White House. And he's a Republican from Texas. Both of these two assholes were involved in the January 6th activity at the Capitol. And now they're poised to be on the House Intelligence Committee, which gets some of the most sensitive intelligence concerning both the U.S. and its allies. honestly. I mean, I just don't. I don't even know where to begin. There's been a ton of fuckery in the House already.
Yep.
And this just, on the surface, this is like, well, it's just more of the same. But, I mean, it's hard to know exactly, you know, how other members on the committee are going to handle this. You know, a lot of times, your average run-of-the-mill representative has no clue what goes on or how sensitive the information is. But both of these jerks are loyal to Trump, and there's just no telling.
Well, any fuckery that's allowed to continue only becomes worse fuckery. I just, you know, straight out of the gate. If you can't stop the fuckery, it only increases and gets, you know, exponentially worse. My constant fear is that, again, this country is pretty much built on toothpicks and a handshake. Who knew? Who knew how many laws we didn't have to control this kind of activity? The idea that Trump, as a convicted felon, he is a convicted felon. Convicted felon Donald Trump. I can't say that. But he can run. He can run.
Mm-hmm.
Are you serious? He can run. Now, my understanding was that convicted felons could not run for public office. Apparently, I am quite mistaken. So, I don't even understand how we handle this as a country, much less anything else. This is terrifying to me. You know, a blowjob was enough to do everything to destroy Bill Clinton, and apparently that was fine. Republicans had a field day tearing him apart. Everything Trump said about Hillary during the 2016 run, about, you know, she would be a convicted, I mean, everything he is, he said she would be if she were elected. And no one is owning up to this. No one is trying to reckon that out. His supporters just do not care. As a matter of fact, I think if they could still arrest her and put her in jail, they would be happy to do it. And, you know, and somebody who admits that they're just going to destroy their enemies the minute they get some power, do these people not realize that that puts them on the same firing line the minute he decides he doesn't like you anymore? Because this is the kind of mentality we're dealing with. We're dealing with a childlike mentality. One minute they love you, the next minute they hate you. If you don't do exactly, I mean, and this is how they control you. They terrify you, and they stamp their feet, and they say terrible things, and no one wants to deal with that. And they all think somehow this money that he doesn't have is somehow going to shine upon them, which is another thing I don't understand. How is the Republicans are not stupid people. To the best of my knowledge, your standard run-of-the-mill, everyday Republican pre-Trump was a normal thinking person. I did not agree, but they could be reasoned with to a certain point, as I can be to a certain point, because I've been known to be a fool. Shut up, don't say it. Anyway, but the point is that these are the kind of people, these Trump people are the kind of people that eat their own eventually. And the fact that this is okay, or that they are in such a position now that they're so scared of him, I don't understand, especially since he has been proven to be a complete fraudster. So what does he have over people if he doesn't have money that he says he has, if he's a convicted felon? Although I will say he has lost 7% of the independent vote that was looking to support him. That could be enough to sway the election. But I don't want people to rest on that, because this work still needs to be done. They are liars. They are sneaky. They will do every dirty thing they can to win. Trump's already proven that, and that's just the stuff we know about. I'm sorry, soapbox done. I'm sick.
Well, so you're absolutely right. In everything, he is projection at its finest, right? Because everything that he accuses other people of doing, that's what he's been doing, and then some. As to why people follow him, I mean, I think that largely there's a certain block of Republicans who have been chomping at the bit and laying in wait and planning for literally decades when they would come back into power, because they're a bunch of, you know, racist, misogynistic assholes. And, you know, I mean, it's just pretty extraordinary that that we're even where we are right in this moment. I want to talk about this. So his campaign released video of it's like a short campaign video, and I mean, he is literally foaming at the mouth. He is sitting, and there's like foam around his mouth. I mean, it's like it's pretty extraordinary that, like, why did they not retake that? You know, I mean, like, what the hell? Like, what reasonable campaign thinks that this is a good idea? I mean, he looks like a rabid animal.
Rabid dog. Yes, and he is a rabid dog. And I kind of think that speaks to the things that Republicans fucking like about him. He is a beast. Well, he is an animal. He sees every negative impulse they have. And they like that about him.
Well, they see him as a path to power. You know, that is, they're willing to sell their soul to anyone to be in a position of power. And that's where we are with things. Honestly, that's where we are. They don't care. I mean, if you look at the Republican platform from the last few years, and compare it to pre-George W., I mean, like, there's, like, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I was not a fan of Reagan, okay, at all. But, I mean, even little Georgie looks sane compared to where we are now. I mean, this is just batshit crazy. They're like, we're going for it. You know, we almost won the last time. We're going for it. We're going to roll back, you know, we've already rolled back abortion. We're going to roll back, you know, contraception. We're going to roll back, you know, marriages that are, you know, interracial marriage. We're going to, you know, they'd like to take women's rights away to vote. They're already, if you look at what they're doing, you know, under the guise of eliminating any kind of diversity program, you know, and critical race theory, which became, you know, their dog whistle. I mean, they are making it, they would like to take us back to pre-civil rights. That's where we are. And I mean, and I think really, and especially considering Alito and Thomas, some of the things that they have both said. I mean, when they reversed Roe v. Wade, he cited law from like 1755 fucking England, okay? You know, I hate to break it to him, but this is not England, and quite a few things have changed since 1755. Like, a lot has changed, but apparently that's the world that they want to live in. And so for a history refresher, for those of you who might have difficulty recalling, that was when child labor was legal. Women were considered property. They certainly did not have the right to vote. Any person of color was, you know, had no rights, although they had more rights in England probably than they did in the U.S., because we were late in passing our civil rights stuff. Anyway, yeah. So that's the world they want to go back to. I might also point out that the mortality rate was, very high, just for everyone.
Yeah. I'd also like to remind...
No vaccinations, also.
I'd like to remind women that, in fact, women were not allowed to have bank accounts. Certainly were not allowed to hold a credit card. And it didn't matter if your husband said it was okay. You weren't allowed to have it. So the idea of not... You want to talk about you're not autonomous now? Literally, you will be property once again, because that is what the society will have wrought. No matter how good you think your partner is, these will be the laws. It has nothing to do with what your partner thinks, feels, or what have you. Laws are laws. That's it. So that's frightening on top of everything else. And I don't necessarily want, I keep telling my kids, I'm like, I'm so glad I'm old, because I could not start over in this society. I would not know what to do with myself. Knowing the things I know, living the things I've lived through, having the experiences I've had, where it seems like I was so much freer than someone my age is now. It's terrifying. Terrifying that you cannot make, in some states, your own choices about your health care or your body, or, and we're going towards, such a backwards line of thinking where I really do believe, and I know it sounds hyperbolic, but that's not my intention. But from what I'm seeing, these are the things they want to do. They want to control women once again, like they did, as most of you will not remember, because you were not born into a society that called for that. Most of you were fortunate enough to be raised by people my age who believe in freedom, autonomy, a woman's right to choose, a woman's right to work, the right to love who you want to love, the right to marry who you want to marry, which is so new in a relative sense and can be swept away so easily with the wrong person in office. And it's terrifying, because this rabid dog that they are running on the Republican side, they have no moral compass. There is no code to keep them in any kind. There's no line they won't cross. There is no bridge too far. And when you have someone who has nothing to lose, the rest of us can lose everything. And that, to me, is, the desperation, the rabid dogness of it. Yeah, terrifying. Because I think he's capable of so much more damage now. He's already threatened that he will, get even with those who oppose him. And I don't think that's going to be limited to other politicians at all. I think it will involve the citizenry. And don't think you're too small for him to find out who you are. Presidents have enormous power. And our government has enormous power to track us. Remember during Obama, there was all this hoo-ha about phone calls and, listening in on private conversations and all these other things. And I will tell you, I worked for John Kerry on his campaign, and before I could do that, my phone had to be tapped, and I was a willing participant. That was fine. But the tap didn't leave once the campaign was over. They just continue. If your team doesn't win, they want to make sure you're not going to start some crazy-ass shit. All Trump is crazy-ass shit. So I feel like the wheels are off. Maybe I'm just, too nervous, because you're usually the sound of calm and, reason and optimism for me, Starr, and I'm just not feeling the opposite.
There is no doubt of where we are with things is really fucking scary. The fact that where we are with things in this moment is pretty scary. However, here's a piece of news that will cheer you up. Okay? Steve Bannon, lost his appeal last month, and basically he has been ordered to go to prison next month to serve his 4 months for being in contempt of Congress, which is good. I like that. You know, I mean, you got to take your joy where you can find it, right? I mean, there's no doubt that there is, you know, there's a lot of scary shit out there. They're doing scary things. You know, next month maybe we'll talk about the 2025 project, which is horrifying. But I mean, every day. Well, so this is the people that are backing the GOP at this point. This is basically their platform, and they want to roll everything back. They want to get rid of the Department of Education. They want to get rid of anyone who serves in government that is not on the take or loyal to Trump. And they don't care what they have to destroy to do it. It's crazy. Like, we don't really have time to really get into this, but I will just say that you cannot read their massive doctrine that they have, you know, their manifesto, if you will. It's all online. You can Google it. Google Project 2025. You can read it. It's like, you know, I don't know, freaking 1,000 pages of insanity. But, yeah, I mean, that we have people that are saying these things is terrifying. There was another article that came out this week. The New Republic published an article written by somebody who has written about Hitler and World War II. They're a historian, but also a reporter. And like, there was this chat group that Eric Prince had. It was a WhatsApp chat group. It had over 400 people in it, many of them, you know, movers and shakers in the political world. So you had politicians, you had people who back politicians, you had journalists, and then you had, you know, other extreme right-wingers. And, I mean, what they talked about in this group, I mean, like, if you look up, like, the definition of fascist, that's what it was. I mean, it was horrifying. Every bit of it. Horrifying. And, you know, I mean, their answer to what's happening in the Middle East was basically to just bomb the shit out of, to drop napalm on Gaza, all of it, and just kill them all. That's their answer. You know, Eric Prince, his solution that he tried to sell to the Israeli government was to flood all of the tunnels with seawater.
Wow.
That was his solution. And even after it was pointed out, like, the devastating effects that would have on, you know, like, ecologically speaking, environmentally speaking, he was like, you know, well, you know, eventually the land will recover, but you'll be rid of everyone in Gaza. You'll be rid of Hamas. Yeah. So, I mean, so yeah, we're living in some pretty scary times. And I think the scariest thing is that if we don't vote, and even if we do, that they are working so hard to gerrymander things that we still may not come out on the right side of things. I think that is scarier than anything else.
You know, people didn't listen when we kept talking about the Supreme Court, And now I'm just kind of wondering, does anyone even trust the Supreme Court anymore? I mean, because it seems like now when decisions come down from the Supreme Court, it's like, oh, not a shock. If it's the worst possible outcome, it's kind of like, yeah, well, we knew that was going to happen. I mean, is there any way that we're going to see any kind of recovery from?
Well, it's really up to Congress to do something. I mean, yeah, we could storm the SCOTUS building and, but I don't really see that happening.
No.
But Congress can act to, impose more restrictions on the court, I think. But yeah, they basically they answer to themselves at this point. They have no serious ethics thing happening at all.
Yeah.
Most judges are accountable for their actions. I mean, if you look at, just look at, you'll like this. I saw somebody referring to Clarence Thomas as Clarence Thomas because he can be bought. Clarence Thomas. Yeah, that's a burn.
Yeah.
But
sick burn.
I mean,
love it.
Like, where did I see that? I just saw something a minute ago where they were showing how much money he has taken in. I mean, it's like crazy. Like really crazy.
And the cars and the gifts that that he now says he didn't know he had to report. How do you not know? How do you not know? This is like any line of lie is okay with these people. Even if it's the most unrealistic lie they could possibly come up with, they're all in on the lie. Wow, if I could get that kind of unwavering support, I would be queen. That would be amazing. Whose dick do you gotta suck to get that accomplished, I'm asking. Seriously. Okay,
yeah.
So before we continue, I just want to take this opportunity to say, please support Wild Hunt. Go to wildhunt.org. It is a pagan paper of record. Give it all your support. Real journalism by real journalists. Check out wildhunt.org. Thank you. All right. Let's talk about the rent fuckery. Because this, as a person who rents, which I do, this is a
and you're in one of the target cities. Yeah, you're in one of the cities that, yeah. So, I read this yesterday, I think, and it's pretty extraordinary. So there is. Let me pull up the article here. It's just absolutely. I was floored.
Insanity.
I was absolutely floored.
So apparently, there's a closing coalition. Go ahead, tell them about it.
Yeah. So this was on June 4th. Judd Legum published a story and here's the headline: Feds raid corporate landlords, escalating nationwide criminal probe of rent increases. So the skinny on this is that there is basically a group of corporate landlords using a company called RealPage or software that basically all of these landlords agree to use, and they agree to raise prices and keep those prices the same, so that all of these different landlords, which, normally landlords are competing with each other, right, for business.
Mm-hmm.
But these guys are like colluding together to drive up rent prices. ProPublica reported on this in 2022, and it barely got anybody's attention. But they've been using this software to basically manipulate the market to drive prices higher on rental. And I mean, it's like stunning. And if a company signs on for the program and then they don't agree with the pricing or whatever, then they're basically kicked out of the program. But their whole thing is that that if they all work together, they can make more money. And not only did it result in them an increase in revenue by $10 million, but it also, they were just pushing people out. That's interesting. So I mean, some of the quotes from the guy, disparaging other landlords. Basically, the guy who created the algorithm for RealPage says, that if you have idiots undervaluing units or housing, it costs the whole system because, very few property managers are going to be willing to actually raise rents double digits within a single month by doing it manually. I mean, this is pretty stunning. I was just like, I read this article and I was like, holy fuck. And then you look at the map, and I mean, there are literally, I would say, over 100 or more properties just in the Atlanta area that their prices are set by using RealPage. That's like, according to Legum, like over 53% of the multifamily rental market in the Atlanta submarket, those landlords are using RealPage. That's more than half.
Yeah, that's frightening.
Yeah,
but
I mean, so but and the end result of that is that rents in Atlanta are up 56% since 2016.
Wow.
So, yeah, which granted the pandemic drove rents up in some areas and down in others, especially people who were looking to get out of cities. But I mean, that's like stunning because that's an overall increase of almost doubling the price. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So, the government's suing their ass off, basically.
Good. Yay.
Yeah.
Get them before they kill all of us. I mean, it really feels like that sometimes. You can make a living and not have to destroy the lives of other people at the same time. There are ways to do it. I do it every fucking day. But anyway, okay. So at least the government is on that. That makes me feel better. Today is the 80th anniversary of TJ. Invasion of Normandy. Wow. That's unbelievable. 80th anniversary sounds like a long time, but when you're 63, which I'm about to be, it's not that fucking long. I'm just saying.
Well, I think probably one of the starkest, examples of, World War II, Normandy and Omaha Beach is really kind of what turned the tide in the war. And it was they didn't even know if it was going to happen. I was listening this morning to some reporting on, you know, how, like, they had this planned so that it coincided with, you know, the moon and the tides, and then this big ass storm came in, and they weren't sure that they were going to be able to even pull it off. And they found like a little, basically, there was going to be a pocket of calm in the storm, and they went for it. And the Germans, seeing the storms, like, well, if they're gonna come, and it's not gonna be, you know, it's not gonna be this week. And
right.
So basically, like the German commandant or commander or whatever the hell he was, you know, went to go sweet talk Hitler for more supplies, and they weren't ready at all. I forget the historian's name, but what's the name of the book? I just listened to it this morning. Today the sea came alive, or something like that, and that was taken from a German, soldier that was on lookout, that looked up, and all of a sudden, like, the sea just erupted with all of this invasion. It still is the largest sea invasion in history. And we're lucky it was successful. It could have not been successful. I also saw this morning the two sets of notes that Eisenhower had prepared. One for if things did not go well, and one for if they did. So
right.
That's. But the person who posted that said, "Here's the difference between a great leader and a not great leader. That Eisenhower was prepared to take he assumed the responsibility of if things didn't go well, that it was his fault. You know."
Yep. Yeah.
Which is why he ended up being president later on. But, you know.
Right. But could you imagine Trump taking any kind of responsibility for anything? He can't even take responsibility for his own life. It's amazing to me that people think this guy is in any way qualified. He already proved he's not qualified. It's already a proven fact that he was not qualified, that he was willing to American lives, that he was willing to blow things up with North Korea, that he was, the things that he threatened, I have no reason to believe that he will not follow. And just because he hasn't necessarily followed through with it yet, he is on the downside of his life, okay? The man is going to be 78, 79, something like that soon. And, he seems to me to be the kind of person who would want to go out with a bang. And when I say a bang, I'm not talking about fucking. I'm talking about fucking the entire world if possible. Because if he's going, I think he wants everyone to go with him. I do not trust that he has the good of the American people at heart. Not believe that he cares for anyone but himself. I don't even think he loves his own children, really, and certainly not in an appropriate fashion. And I know that is because he was not loved in an appropriate fashion. But I am not his psychiatrist, nor am I pretending to be. But, the things we do, the way we raise people, have consequences. He is the result of bad rearing. Boy, when somebody goes astray, you just don't know what I could never have imagined Trump being president back in the 80s when he was a joke in the New York Post. And, he was the object of fun. And literally a joke for bankruptcies and failed marriages and cheating with this one and that one. He was not the kind of person that a good Christian, quote-unquote, evangelical, would ever have anything to do with someone of this nature. And they have created this monster. And if they think in any way that this is something that their God would have approved of, I would say you probably have not read your Bible enough, because even though I do not follow it necessarily, I don't need a book to tell me what's right and wrong. I pretty much know that if I'm hurting another individual, it is probably fucking wrong. Sorry.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah. Well,
and
yeah.
you know, I can't with this bullshit anymore. I'm just so over it. And I will tell you that the schadenfreude that I have been experiencing around my Trump Republicans has been extraordinary, because there is a lot of hand-wringing and a lot of it's God's plan bullshit. And I'm like, sure, you go right ahead with that. Because when he loses, that's part of the plan too, right? And, you know, they don't want to fess up on that one. But, okay. So we were talking about Atlanta a few minutes ago. Let's go back to Atlanta and see what the conservative Republicans had to deal with there. Apparently there was some kind of a group meeting at a Jewish congregation, and that kind of went kaplooey. Tell folks about that, Starr.
Well, apparently so. You'll have to refresh me on the name of the temple. But yeah, so some conservative. Yeah, it's one of the most progressive liberal temples like in the country, and so apparently conservative, a bunch of conservative Republicans like got them to agree to let them to give some kind of lecture or talk. Sarah Amos is going to have an article. She's working on an article about this. She's the one who sent me. Apparently it was fairly well attended, but not a single member from the congregation was actually present. So, what this tells you is that they're really grasping for straws, and they're really worried. They're worried that they are, that they are losing voters, and they should be, because, all of the gerrymandering aside, all of, everything that they're trying to do, I don't think any of it's going to work, because when it comes right down to it, there is a large enough block of Americans who are not going to vote for Trump. And him being convicted means that he lost a good number of the people that were kind of like, well, I don't really like Biden, but I don't really like Trump. But if he gets convicted, I'm probably not going to vote for him. And so I think he has lost that. But I am going to say right now that we need to be very careful at looking at these polls, and they're not worth anything, okay? They are not worth anything. The last 3 elections, they have not been worth anything, maybe more than that. Trump was not projected to win against Hillary. Now I will say that he was not projected to win against Biden either, and that proved to be true. But it seems like anytime Trump is involved, it skews the results of polls. But, remember their big red wave? Ooh, the red wave is coming for the midterms. Yeah, that didn't happen.
Right.
So I think we have to be really skeptical about any of these polls, and, and they need to be looked at with a jaundiced eye of like, I don't know that this is right. And even if it is right, it just means we're going to keep doing what we're doing. Fuck the polls.
Right.
Keep talking about it. Keep talking to your friends. Keep, reminding people, hey, did you fucking vote? Are you registered to vote? Here, let me give you a form so that you can be registered to vote. I mean, all of that. That's what we need to be doing over and over and over again. That's what we need to be doing. There is, every time we see bullshit, we got to call it out. Every time. Every time.
Talk to me a minute about the change of venue situation that seemed to be one of the sticking points for Trump. He was convicted of a jury of his peers. He's a native New Yorker. So I'm a little bit confused. Where should the venue have been to make it more fair? I can't imagine that moving it anywhere would have made it, quote-unquote, more fair. It would have perhaps leaned it more that he might have had more people on his side. But to be honest with you, 34 out of 34 is a lot. A lot to be straight convicted. And I'll be honest with you, I thought maybe half, if not fewer. But when they came back, because of the nature of, it's not a quick conviction. When it's not quick, it usually I spoke with Lori Bizzaro from the Temple of Hecate, who happens to be a lawyer, and she was like, yeah, when it seems like they're dragging their feet, it's usually better for the plaintiff, not the plaintiff, the defendant.
The defendant.
And go. Yeah, and she had concerns. So the fact that they came back with 34 out of 34 was quite remarkable. Do you think a change of venue would have made that much of a difference? Because guilt is guilt, is it not?
Oh, for sure. I mean, but the thing is like, I'm not sure where they could have moved it. That, first of all, I mean, we are dealing with, whether we like it or not, we're dealing with a former president. Security concerns are always going to be high. Where could they have done it that they could have had the level of security that they needed, for starters?
True.
I don't know that I don't think it would have made any difference, because the evidence is the evidence. And, he can call Cohen a liar all day long, but his testimony was backed up by, people that were friendly to Trump. And, the bottom line, my opinion, is the defense barely presented a case at all, other than just a bunch of blathering talk. They called, one witness, two witnesses? They had, they called almost no witnesses. Trump did not take the stand in his own defense, which is not unusual and not an admission of guilt, okay? But they could have called any number of witnesses, and they didn't. Some of their when they cross-examined witnesses for the prosecution, it was terrible. I'm like, wow, where did you? Yeah. I think I have, I should get a law degree if that's all it takes. Because I mean, just absolutely terrible in and what they said at the, so in a case of this high profile, they start with opening statements, and usually, the prosecution goes down they say, this is the case we're going to present, this is the evidence that we're going to present that's going to back it up, and this is where we're going to end up, which is going to be you saying guilty. And then the defense, they lay out their case. They say, okay, this is what we're, this is how we think things went. This is the evidence that backs that up, and you're going to say not guilty. Okay?
Correct.
Everything that the prosecution said, this is what we are going to show to you, and we are going to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that these things are in fact the truth. They did that. Right. And the defense did not. They made some wild ass claims, in their opening statements, and it was like, really? I can't wait to see that, And then you got Trump constantly, berating and saying all kinds of horrible things about not just the judge, but the judge's family, the jurors. They had to replace, 2 jurors, because they were just like, yeah, I don't think this is for me. I feel unsafe.
Yeah, I don't blame them.
No. So do I think that a change of venue? I mean, I'm not sure where they could have held it, that could have handled it. But also, I mean, the most diverse cross-section of human beings, New York City is pretty much it. It's not, I think people have this idea that New York is, like they're all a bunch of, flaming liberals and, that's like saying that everybody in the South is a, Bible thumping, Christian. It's simply not true. And it's not true,
Correct.
To say the opposite is true of New York, because it's not, Yeah,
most of my relatives were actually Republicans in New York, so yeah, that, and we're not talking about upstate New York either. We're talking about in the boroughs. Lots and lots and lots of Republicans. So, yeah, It doesn't really prove out anything. Your theory about, when I say you, the general you, the common thought about cities is always accurate. Just as the common thought about countries, and I mean in the country, as in the countryside, is not always accurate. Not everyone who's in the country is a bumpkin, and not everyone in the city is a fucking laureate. So, there's a good swath of everywhere.
They would have to stay within the confines of the Southern District of New York, because that was where the case was being brought. So even if they changed the venue, they can't move it out of the district because it's state. And now here's another little thought that will cheer you up. He can't pardon himself for this, okay? Any prosecution where he is convicted at the state level, even if he were to become president again, he can't pardon himself for that because it happened at the state level. Presidents only have authority to pardon over federal crimes and federal convictions. So he's shit out of luck, unless he's going to run for, governor of New York as well and then pardon himself. I don't know. Maybe he'll do that. I doubt it. But he's going to have to be really busy and really, the chances of him getting somebody elected to the governorship in all of the states that are bringing charges against him, because the governor could pardon him, but I can guarantee you that Katie Hobbs is not going to pardon him in Arizona if he's convicted. I'm not so sure that Kemp would pardon him, and he's a flaming, GOP asshole. He's governor of Georgia, and the governor of New York, he has a snowball's chance in hell of her pardoning him. So there you go. There's your little bright. So
isn't he also not allowed to travel outside of the country, or is it that he's not allowed to travel outside of the state?
Outside of the U.S. Outside of the U.S.
So it's going to make foreign visits a little difficult with an ankle bracelet. I'm just saying, that ride through security's a bitch and a half without one. And if you got one, I don't know. I just think the idea of Trump being president again is so insane and so laughable that it's incredulous. That's all I can say. Just incredulous.
Well, there's a huge double standard here that, if I have to hear one more comment about, or read one more story about how old Joe Biden is, Trump is literally releasing campaign videos where he is frothing at the mouth. And, every speech he gives is like fucking word salad. And he was a terrible president. But, oh, my gosh, let's talk about how old Biden is. And then there's this thing that, and I've seen this a lot, too, is like what an, evil genius he is because he's, like, taking over, and it's like he's persecuting Trump, and he's doing this, and he's doing that. And it's like, okay, so
those things are not true.
Yeah, he's either senile and so decrepit he can barely think, or he's an evil genius. Like those two things cannot both be true at the same time.
Right.
But yeah, Trump gets a pass. Trump says and does the most horrible things, gets a pass, but, Uncle Joe is like, they're like, well, he's really old. He was very slow. He paused in between his responses, and, oh, the horror. He had note cards prepared with notes on them that he referred to when we interviewed him. Yeah, wow, because no one does that, right?
Yeah, because Trump actually makes sense all the time. Huh? Trump makes up words on the spot, and his followers do not care. You want to know why his followers don't care? Because they are as knuckle-dragging, uneducated as he wants them. Or they're afraid of him. It's the people that love him are the people that want the world to be full of hate, that don't want to love their neighbors, that don't want to help their fellow man. It's about me and mine. They have that Trump mentality. It upsets me to no end that so many fellow Americans feel that way. I just, I don't know. When I was I was raised in the 70s and 80s, and it was like, we were all looking for that second Woodstock moment that never happened, the age of Aquarius and all of that. The planets aligning and people loving each other, and it's like, God, we are so far from that dream. So far from it.
Yeah.
Disturbing. As an old hippie, I am quite disturbed. But anyway. Well, Starr, you've given me a lot to think about, as always, like you do. But I want to thank you, again, as always, for helping us understand more than we did before we started. And, well, guys, we're going to wrap it up here, and we're going to say good night for this month. Starr, say good night, Starr.
Good night, Starr.
All right, guys, remember, vote. Make your friends vote. Make everybody vote. No excuses. We don't have time for this bullshit, and we certainly don't have time for another Trump presidency. I will see you tomorrow. Bye.